Morning all. I'd like to call this facilities meeting, May 12th, in a special meeting of the Board of Education to order. Our first item on the agenda is the discussion of a proposed Darien Athletic Foundation athletic press box project. I will first throw it to Dr. Adley, who is remote in Harvard for a superintendent's meeting, and then we can have the Darien Athletic Foundation present.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Just somebody just give me a thumbs up. We're good? Yep. Thank you, sir. I'm pleased this morning to welcome, I can't see her, but I believe the president of the DAF, Jennifer Montanaro, is present. And Bruce Ferguson may also be present from DAF Media. We had the opportunity recently to have a discussion with Jen and Bruce, and it was around the topic of making improvements to the athletic press box. So they're kind enough to come this morning, and they're going to share their ideas and their proposals. And ultimately, we'd like to consider, for the board to consider giving approval for the move forward with this type of donation, which they've experience of doing in the past. Good morning to Mr. Manfredone, also there. I see him sitting there. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you're okay, I would invite Chris and or Bruce to share a few comments about the project.
Please.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're excited to have DAF here with the proposed project of expanding the press box at the stadium field. So when the press box was built back in, I think, 2005, when the new building was built, it was built rather small. And then since that, we've grown exponentially in terms of the athletic program and its offerings, in terms of officials up in the booth, PA announcers up in the booth, and most importantly, our student managers who work DAF Media when we broadcast games, student engineers. And so there could be anywhere from 3 to 6 or even more, depending on what event they're broadcasting that day. So it's become quite a tight space. In addition, although it's really nice to look at, the rooftop structure doesn't support people. And so as a result, we like to be able to put football coaches or coaches in general up on top of the roof to help with in-game preparation, in-game schematics, make that weight bearing. So I think, and I'll let Bruce and Jen talk more about the project, but ideally we'd like to expand and go up with the press box, and I think would be beneficial to the athletic program at Darien High School. So,
Hi, thanks for having us. Jennifer Montanaro, Bruce Ferguson. We're here today just as we discussed with Dr. Adley and Mr. Manfredone. We're looking to possibly expand the press box. We've been using that for quite so many years, and I know that there's a protocol on how to go about doing this. I'll let Bruce talk about the details, since Bruce is in the press box with the students, volunteers, and as well as the coaches, et cetera. And I merely have been the one that helps facilitate this through the process. So ultimately today, after Bruce discusses this, we're going to be asking for your permission to explore the next steps in going forward with all the necessary approvals and possibly meeting with some engineers, et cetera. So I'll turn this over to Bruce because he'll give you the little more detail about what we're specifically looking to do.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Dr. Adley, and thank you all for having us in today. I'm Bruce Ferguson, board member for Darien Athletic Foundation. As Jen said, and Mr. Manfredone, I spent a fair amount of time in the press box. I was the technology person behind the founding of DAF Media, which is the live stream broadcasting that we have over 60 kids in town involved in doing now. So there's a lot of broadcast equipment and activity around that main field there, the stadium field at Darien High School. If you've been there, you see that oftentimes we're set up outside because there's not enough room in there. And then the coaches are up on the roof, which is a safety issue. And that's both the home team and the away team during football season. They're up there. So and with DAF Media, we go to so many schools around Fairfield County and the tri-state area. And I think that just maybe when the press box was built with the new high school, it it was undersized just because of maybe value engineering at the end of the project or something. I don't know exactly, but it's I think the smallest press box in Fairfield County and the area. So the idea would be to hopefully ask for your permission to move ahead and get some drawings put together about how it could maybe just be expanded, and then like a little staircase inside the building that would go up to an enclosed upper deck, like most press boxes that you see, so that we could get people off the roof and put cameras up top. I think that the net result would be about even, because we would be moving all of our equipment up top and away from there, so that you would, I think that you'd be about the same as far as it wouldn't be taking much away from that mezzanine. But I think we're just kind of in the exploratory thought process right now of just trying to improve that item, or that building, I guess I should say.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming to us, and I'll open up the floor for questions, if any. Sure. Joe?
I have a couple questions. The first one is, of course, that mezzanine, you just said wouldn't, be a huge impact on the mezzanine, but it is a really popular place for parents to go up and view. So what are your thoughts on that? And, you have a lot of sports parents who are involved, so would love to understand sort of how they feel about potentially losing some of that space.
I don't think it would be a large area, but what we would be doing is giving back where DAF Media currently sets up its tent.
Okay.
So you're gaining that area, maybe moving it a little bit, expanding the actual press box itself.
Yeah.
And you're taking from Peter to pay Paul, really, I suppose. But also getting the kids filming up and over, so you're not filming the backs of heads and getting them off of chairs, and trying to get the tripods over folks' heads when they stand up. It's right in the line, so
Okay.
you wouldn't be really losing much at all.
Okay.
And again, all this is based on engineering drawings. I mean, we really do need to make sure that this is something that can be done.
Okay. And then from an educational perspective, so it's a little bit of a question for you guys and a little bit of a question for Chris and Alan. I know a lot of our kids, you said over 60 are involved in DAF Media. Can we talk about a little bit of what they do and how this expanded space would enhance their experience, and talk about the connection to what they might be doing in school? So again, that's a little bit of you guys and a little bit of administration.
Mr.
Yeah.
McCammon, oh, sorry, go ahead. I can't see.
I can speak to that. When we first started, so this is now, believe it or not, the 5th year that DAF Media has been in operation. It's under the advisement of Damian Andrew, who we hired from Cablevision at the time. He was the sports anchor and director for 12 years in Fairfield County. So it's a joint venture between the Darien Foundation and the Darien Athletic Foundation that pays for the equipment and for Damian to do what he does. So when we first started, we were starting from scratch. And if you go back and look at the history of the broadcast, they were much more simple. And so it was just a camera. And then we kind of seeded it with adult announcers because we wanted the quality to be really high. And over time, as students have expressed interest in announcing, we have taught them, and they've learned through osmosis of listening and apprenticing under these really great people who know a lot about the various activities that we're broadcasting about. So we have aspects of camera operations. So there's the setup and cleanup, which is logistics, operations, organization, all that type of stuff. We have camera operations during broadcasts. Usually there's between 2 and 5 cameras on a broadcast. And so we'll have camera operators, we have instant replay operators, we have graphics operators, which if you've watched recent broadcasts, we have a lot more graphics in the broadcasts now. So that's all this, the graphics are prepared by students. The graphics are played out, operated, after a goal or during a concert. It will say, that director of Darien Public School Music is speaking at the podium right now. There'll be what we call lower thirds up. All that has to be prepared. So typically we have about 4 students on the broadcast if you would consider it a control room, in the control room type area, graphics, instant replay, and at least 1, sometimes 2 on the broadcast switching.
I think it's worth noting that we sort of modeled this similar to how Post 53 models, how they do that. So you're bringing a student in, we're trying to grab them in the 8th grade, those that are interested. And it's funny, we do get quite a bit of interest in 8th grade, bringing them in 9th grade. They start there, and the older kids are really mentoring the younger kids, and always there's an adult supervisor, and they're just learning invaluable skills. I mean, it's really amazing to watch them. I think our dream has always been, when we talked about this several years ago at some Board of Ed meetings was, these are kids and they're volunteering their time similar to how athletes do. And we look at them as a team. So it's important for us to make sure that they've got all the swag and they do the pasta dinners, and they're considered to be their own team because they're supporting everybody else, whether it be arts, right? And the athletics for the school. So I think it's a really important thing that we continue to be able to do this and give them what it is that they need in order to be the best, because we have other schools tapping on our shoulders saying, how did you do that? How did you make that work? And we've had parents who go to their kids' college games saying, your broadcast is so much better than what we see up here in college. So I think it's really impressive what Damien and Bruce in particular have been able to do for Darien. And I can't imagine how much further this is going to go, because now, kids are applying to schools that offer similar type of opportunities. And I think that's always been our goal. And after 5 years, we're sort of encroaching that. And I think it's fantastic.
Dr. Adley, anything to add?
No, I think Jen and Bruce sort of summed it up nicely there. For there's a small cadre of students who can take skills forward to college and application and experience forward. So this is an opportunity to expand their experiences and how to do things. The other thing is just, which just goes back to one of the first points made, I am most concerned too about the safety of some of the filming that is being done by home and away coaches on those roofs. It's just, we need to do something about that.
So, sure, Jen, Bruce, thank you very much, and thank DAF and all the community that's involved in DAF. We have a world-class facility up there, and it's thanks to all the hard work of the folks at DAF and the parents in the community, Mr. Manfredonia, you and your team. So it's impressive, and what you've done over the last 5 years for the students in terms of incorporating them and kind of building a communication program is incredible. So we should explore that a little more down the road, from a Board of Ed to a DAF and a, DAF media standpoint. I'd like to do that. But thank you. Again, this is most generous. I'm a little visual, so just high level concept. Where the booth is now, you might be going out a foot or 2 on either side and basically putting a second story on. And the second story becomes a better visual for what they do on the field. The bottom level stays and is maybe more equipment and stuff like that. And you just get out of the way of everyone's heads on the thing there pretty much.
Yeah.
And is the second floor totally enclosed?
No.
It's not.
No, it's strictly
open air.
open,
Okay.
possible cover on just to cover the equipment, but it'd be open with
Okay.
railings, safety.
Okay. So whatever goes out up there then has to come in when they're done.
Yes,
But the physical booth itself will be expanded.
yes.
Okay.
It'll be-
What's the
yeah.
average that what could a normal size group fit in there? 4 people? It's small.
It's small right now because you've got the announcers announcing the game. You've got the
Yeah.
kids working, the cameras. You've got the referees in there, right? So
Okay.
that's why we keep the DAF kids outside of it, because they're having their own commentary. And to call a game live, on the field it's just too much going on.
Right.
So
Okay. That's the tent there.
there's,
I would
video
just,
board,
knowing
music,
knowing
yeah.
you folks, I'm sure you will, but if we're going to do it, let's do it right in
Yeah.
terms of as we go through the process and the size, what we've learned in doing Oxbridge and now Jill and the other schools, like the value engineering gets us nowhere at the end of the day. So Mr. Lynch, at a high level, you're the guru of these buildings. Does that seem like a challenge to expand that building or add more weight up there or anything?
No,
No.
it's built over, a concrete foundation.
Okay,
It's the storage area and the weight room.
okay.
So they should be able to expand
Should be
it.
able to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the only thing I'd ask is there anything up there in that area that you have on the plan to do from a maintenance or update standpoint that can be incorporated into this on our end?
No, not up on the plaza. No.
Okay, all right.
Okay, one more quick question.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
One more quick question. So you mentioned that our booth is a little undersized relative to comparable districts. What is the difference? How big is approximately, or what's like 10% difference, 20%, whatever number? I'm just curious.
Ours is probably 50% of the size of any modern booth for sure. I mean, if you look at Greenwich High School just rebuilt their stands. So they had a small booth like us, and then that was just replaced. If you look at like the one down at Boyle Stadium and Stanford High School, they're long. The more modern ones are longer, and then they have little partitions inside so that, because football coaches, they are on those headsets and they're calling down to their sidelines. They need elevation to be able to see. So that's why they like the being up either on the roof or at the press box to be able to see the plays and call back down to their coaching staff.
Okay.
So there's a home and an away aspect there. So
Okay.
I would say the short answer is probably we're about 50% of the size, maybe
right.
maybe 60% of the size
Okay.
of normal.
That's
of
helpful.
normal.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Just got a vision of a fly bridge, like on the top of a boat. On top of the press box.
I think I'm with you, Duke, because I'm just and maybe Dr. Adley is, I appreciate going up a second level. What I'm afraid of is that then it becomes creep and then someone goes up on the roof on the third level. So you're up 20 feet and,
No.
yeah. And so I just think we have to be careful
Yeah.
that we don't allow that to happen. Maybe we build some type of slope roof that you're not allowed to go up on the roof and
Well,
things
just
like
to
that.
clarify though, there won't be the roof level won't go up at all.
Oh, so you're just going to have a second floor and open and no. roof
Yeah,
on
so
top.
just picture, like, if you can picture like sitting in the visitor stands at a stadium and looking over at their home stands where their press box is. Most of them, they just have a railing that goes around the top of the one level booth and a staircase inside that goes up to the top so that you can set a tripod up there at the railing. And then, but if it was to start to rain even during the game, you're going to get rained on because there is no roof over you.
Okay,
So
perfect. All right. That clears up a lot for me.
Is
I
there,
was-
I mean, we're getting into the weeds here, but I would say it'd be something to think about is the ability to canopy or tent it
Right.
if need be, and that
you could, but
yeah,
a lot of the filming people, they have like a 5x5 pop-up tent that they'll put up during the game.
Good.
We could look at that, I guess, with the
Right.
engineers to see,
Yeah.
but
I think what we ought to do is like what we've done in the past for all
Yes.
these projects is get a copy of the plans if we can, meet with the engineers, do a walkthrough, take some measurements, come up with some renderings, and then submit and work with Mike Lynch and obviously Dr. Adley and yourselves and
Good.
submit it and we tweak the changes from there.
No,
we
it sounds
can't-
perfect.
We can't help ourselves.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you both very much.
Thank
Thank
you all,
you.
and thank you for coming forward. It's very, very much appreciated.
Thank you, Jan and Bruce. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is another exciting one. Discussion on the RFP results for the architectural services for the library
folks.
redesign at Darien High School, Middlesex, and Tokenic schools. I will throw that over to Dr. Adley again.
Yeah, I just, this is exciting. The board asked us to do this, to go through this RFP process, and we have done that. And since Mike and Rich are there, we contained the memorandum. We have a recommendation to make. And I'll let my colleagues speak to that recommendation this morning. Thank you.
So we did issue a bid, as we said we would. We did get 6 responses. The lowest qualified bid being Silver Petrocelli at $44,600. This would be for work on design and creation of the ed specs for the library redesign and enhancement at the high school, middle school, and Tokenic. which would be the three schools that haven't been touched in terms of the library since Oxbridge is under the construction of the new school. And then eventually the HHR projects will take care of those three elementary schools.
So just, sorry. So just explain to me the schematic design at 44 and construction at 83.
So we're only looking to approve schematic design and ed specs.
Right.
And then once the ed specs are created and approved by the Board of Ed, and then there's a building committee established, at that point, you're going to go out for like an architect similar to what Oxford did, and then the HHR committee.
So what's the 83.7?
So should we not create a building committee? They essentially submitted from start to finish
In terms of them running the
in terms of them running the
Got
project.
it.
Correct.
So
Okay.
Go ahead, Jill.
schematic design is usually a little further down the pipeline.
During a regular construction project, yes, but, you know, a lot of this is going to be interior, minor partitions, a lot of furniture and
Right.
equipment.
This is paint, carpet, stuff
Yeah,
like that.
things like of that nature. So you do want to see renderings in some detail
Okay,
and tie them to the ed specs.
okay. So was this selection based on just the price point, or were there other factors?
No, we wanted to make sure, all of those companies came and made the walkthrough.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you didn't make the walkthrough and you just like looked at a few things, submitted a number, you know, we didn't want to talk to you. Some of them went way too far.
Yeah.
You know, beyond what we were looking to do. You know, we're looking to rearrange some space.
Right,
You know, some people were, you know, build a second floor and take these rooms out next door. We're like, whoa, wait a minute, it's not what, you know, so that's why there's such a big disparity. But the bottom three are the ones that got it with what we wanted to do with those spaces.
the bottom three.
I mean, you know, the Silver Petroselli, Russell Dawson, and KG&D.
Okay.
They
Lower
understood.
three.
They understood. The other three,
Yeah.
you know, they were thinking more big construction project, not what we were looking to repurpose existing space that's of adequate size.
Any other questions?
So did they submit an RFP and
We submitted
Sorry,
we sent an
RFP.
RFP out, we advertised it, and we sent it out to about 12
okay,
architectural firms,
okay.
and we got the 6 responses back.
So in addition to sort of just an understanding of the project, we liked conceptually, like how much conceptual was in their response to the RFP, I guess is the question.
I don't
Well,
know if I
so
understand what you're
there are
asking.
different ways to reconfigure, and some people use space better than others. We
Did they
have-
bring drawings to show you the concepts?
In their proposals, some of them have, you know, drawings of what, you know, little renderings of what they
Okay.
thought they
Yeah,
could do to
okay.
repurpose the space.
And you found them
Yeah.
to be reasonably interchangeable, or,
Yeah, we kind of gave them the parameters of what we wanted in that space.
Okay.
As far as, you know, collaborative space, private space, maker space,
okay.
productions where they could do little, you know, AV type
Mhm.
projects and videos and
Did they get did they get a view into Oxbridge's space, either conceptually?
they
or
didn't, 'cause, you know, it hasn't been built yet.
No,
But-
no, understood, yes. But did they see the schematics to the Oxbridge? Did they see the drawings?
They saw the schematic drawings for the HHR program.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, they know,
They know the
it was like,
concept.
this is the footprint to
Okay.
follow. Yeah.
Like
Okay.
them, Mike, Silver Petroselli?
Excuse
You
me?
like them, Silver Petroselli? You've worked with them?
Yeah, we've worked with them before, multiple times.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, they're a very good
Yeah.
firm.
They did last time we
That's
worked
right.
with them here, they did some early stuff for the cafeteria,
They
right?
did,
I'm
they
trying to
did the
think.
early, they did the early concept stuff for the cafeteria.
Yeah.
They did the oil tank removal and replacement. They did the roof at the middle school. They did a kitchen renovation back in the 90s.
Mhm.
And the focus of their business is municipal work. They've probably done half the police department buildings in Connecticut.
Right, and didn't they do our garage? DPW garage? Weren't they-
Yes, they did the DPW garage. Yes.
So if we agree, we can ask the administration to bring this forward for the budget transfer at the May 24th meeting to approve for the
Correct.
the design, the 44,000. Do we agree?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Next is discussion on an outdoor classroom proposal at Middlesex. Again, I will give that over to Dr. Adley. Oh, can't hear you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. This project is being proposed to be supported through the Darien Foundation. The Darien Foundation, as you know, over 2 decades has spent granted awards in excess of $1.4 million to the school. Many of those have been in technology areas and instructional areas. And this particular project, if you recall, back in November and then in the budget season, I introduced this concept in the presentation. It wasn't proposed to be part of the FY23 budget. It was never part of the FY23 budget. It certainly was one of those ideas and new learnings that we had through the COVID experience, the benefits of outdoor experiences for our students. And this was an opportunity the Darien Foundation was looking to continue to support the school and for ideas. So these ideas came together. We separated it for some time just to consciously give a wee bit of distance away from the budget process so it didn't get confused with the budget process. But we're at a point now where we'd like to proceed with it. Mrs. Rodriguez originally proposed this way back in the fall. And again, the foundation have been behind the scenes ready to support such a venture and the experience for the kids for the outdoors. So there was a very preliminary, at the budget time that we did a very preliminary budget, which I contained in the memorandum. The bottom line though is that budget for that particular space, which is at the middle school in the courtyard, and it would be to renovate, it would be sort of, I'll say renovated, but it will be to put some tables in there, an outdoor whiteboard and an outdoor television and some sort of screen in canopy of some description. That particular budget needs to be refined and based on a rendition. So the Darien Foundation is I actually heard as of yesterday, they're happy to support an architectural rendition so that a budget number can come forward and a rendition can come forward. You may be seeing this morning pictures in the memorandum. Those are just simply at the time concepts that were being discussed. So I don't want you to look at those and that's exactly what it's going to look like, because that's not the case necessarily, but it may contain some of those aspects, benches, displays, canopies. So the bottom line is that the foundation is happy to go ahead and do the rendition and have that done in order to look at it in more detail and flesh out a budget in more detail and to seek approvals, because ultimately you're going to have the fire marshal's approval, P&Z at some administrative level. So in order to sort of move forward with it, that's what we would suggest as the next step. And I think the foundation is prepared to do that, but I'll leave it there for the moment for your consideration and questions.
Fundamentally, I agree with moving this forward. I think it's a great idea. I think we see at Oxbridge, we see in the Hanley Homes and Royal Building Committee that everybody is looking carefully at outdoor space and how to use it. And I think that's partly back to that question of what did we learn from COVID is the value of that outdoor space. And partly, I think as people look at circulation and how to use buildings and beyond, I think it's great. I think my request is actually slightly different. I'm looking at the strategic plan to sort of align this project with some of what we have in there. And I think it certainly fits in terms of identifying capital needs to support teaching and learning. But we as a board might just want to take a look at how we just confirm how we think it aligns. Again, I think it makes sense, but just want to make sure that as we decide what we take on, we use the boundaries we set for ourselves. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Duke, any comments, questions?
No.
My only question would be, since this is so close to the library, could we ask Silver Petroselli to be this architect and do a quick rendering for us of what that would look like? And kind of just piggyback on top of that for the previous part and kind of understand what it would be and work from that.
And related to that, actually, also, I think in our master plan, we had a couple of classrooms needed for Middlesex, potentially, depending on what our enrollment looks like. Would this in any way disrupt that possibility?
Well, currently, I think, the S&P choice, if that's what's made this morning, it's not to look. We're not actually looking at classrooms in that particular process. So that doesn't come under the description of the work, and so this wouldn't either. But certainly tagging it with potentially utilizing Silver Petroselli in this process, since they're doing something now, might be a good idea in the sense of just timeliness and the two processes time-wise are coming together at the same time. So it might be fortuitous and useful and economic to ask them to look at it at the same time. I think that's a reasonable idea, a good idea, actually.
And Mike, you think that it wouldn't get in the way of any potential addition?
No, because it's not going to be a thing you can use all year.
The potential classrooms are off the back of the school.
Yeah.
Rusty has the building all.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wouldn't interfere with anything going on back there, but it wouldn't replace it because you couldn't, you'd have that whole stretch through the winter where you couldn't use it at all.
Okay. Thank you.
My only, and this again gets into the weeds, but I like the concept of tying it into Silver Petroselli, and they'd have to understand there's a carve out. We need to understand the costs associated with it since it's tied to the foundation. But my only concern is I like the natural light in that library. So I would be cautious as to how we interfere with the natural light in that library. But to Mike's point, it's a seasonal type usage. So I'd like to see as it moves forward, just so what are the, what's the potential? It's a little bit random, but as to how many weeks or whatever we'd be using it. And then is it just retractable for winter light to get into that courtyard? So
Agreed.
all right, but
Okay.
I think we should.
Yeah,
Move forward.
I agree as well. And so we'll ask the administration to bring that forward at our next board meeting as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask just for clarification, just at this sort of level and this part of the process, just sort of tacitly, would it be conceptually the intent, given it's aligning to this other architectural rendition, that the additional cost for that would be incurred by the foundation? I think they'd be very happy with that, right? I know they're very supportive of doing it separately, so I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be. But is that the general thought of the group this morning?
I think that would be my thought, to ask them and thank them for offering to come up with a difference, if there is a difference of, to render the outdoor classroom. Would we agree? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Our next item is a status update on the Royal School roof project. I'll throw that over to Mr. Lynch, I assume.
Yep. Okay, so the Royal School roof project, we were supposed to get our project number today from the state of Connecticut, and that will allow us to set up a review of the project with the state to get their approval. We already have the approval of the fire marshal, the Board of Health, and the building department here in Darien. And once we get the approval from the state, we can then bid the project out. And it's been a little bit of a delay, so the project going forward, it will probably have about 3 or 4 weeks to run while school reconvenes in September. We ran into this issue to a supply issue last year at Holmes. It didn't seem to be a problem at all. we ran into an issue with the slate roof at Middlesex, and we had scaffolding up in front of the building till Thanksgiving weekend that year. And so sometimes these things happen. It's not ideal, but it's workable, and we can work around it. So that way we get this project done, we can stay on track with the solar panel installations. So I'll just go right into the solar update. The company chosen by the Connecticut Green Bank to do the actual installation came out to the site. Kevin Munret and I walked him through the buildings, the roofs, probably the coldest, windiest day in the last month. But it's the way it is, right?
Yeah.
And he surveyed all the roofs with a drone, pre-programmed, controlled it from his phone. It was amazing.
It's
Yeah,
amazing when you, yeah.
no tape measure, no nothing, just the drone. And yeah, and he was up on each roof for about an hour. And he said their company has the materials on site. They have them in their warehouse. There's no issue with getting anything. And the plan is to do Hindley, Holmes, Oxridge, and Royal. And coincidentally, this morning, I received a bunch of the final paperwork with the final numbers. I haven't even opened them and looked at them from the Connecticut Green Bank. They'd have to be signed by the first selectman. And then there's some copies of minutes I have to get from our board, asking the first selectman to sign, and then from the Board of Selectmen authorizing her to sign.
Okay.
So I'm going to start working on that today.
We don't need any RTM approvals or anything like that, right?
No, there's no money expenditure at all.
Got it. Good. Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
So I think we've talked about the solar. I think the questions because you, in your memorandum on the Royal Roof project, you have three options. One, to wait until next summer. Sorry, that's the second option. First option is to start the bid now before we have approval. And the third option is to wait for approval and start the project in July and finish by October 1st. And that is your recommendation.
The
Do you
biggest
need-
issue is there's an option in here where we would forego any reimbursement from the
Right,
state.
that's
Right.
option one. So
It's
sorry, I missed.
20% of the cost of the roof, and we're estimating the eligible costs of the project to be around $500,000. So you're foregoing a substantial amount of money.
Could potentially.
Exactly. So
So I think, speaking for myself, I think we would choose option three, but do we need to ask the board to move this forward to the board, or we just go and do option three? Clear enough.
It's literally, I've talked to Alan about this. It's been an incredibly frustrating process working with the state. We've got mixed signals with the state. Monica McNally, our first selectman, has been incredibly helpful, re-signing stuff, trying to get it to move along. Alan has spent personal time and collateral trying to work with the state. And it's just been a challenge. And so, this is all approved and ready to go. So I like option three. Just kind of keeps, I'm more concerned about keeping us on track with the solar project.
And the solar project how long would that take to install? So that if we finish the roof October 1st and then have to do the solar install following that, is that how long?
no, they're hoping to start the solar panel install last week of June, first week of July.
At Royal as well?
No, they're doing a building at a time.
Okay, so how long would it take if the roof isn't finished, completed at Royal until October?
Yeah, the way the solar panel project is set up, the ZREC credits are good for 18 months.
Okay.
You have to apply them to a project and actually be doing the work. And so we got those credits in January. So if we waited till next June, we'd not only lose our state aid, we'd lose the credits that would fund a percentage of that solar project. So we would lose both ways.
Okay.
So, this is the only workaround we could come up with. to keep the funding in place.
Fabulous.
And they're fine. I talked to the people from the Green Bank.
This would just be the last project they would
Right.
do.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and they're not only doing us.
Okay.
The project, the company's based in outside of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And they're doing a substantial number of projects for the Connecticut Green Bank.
Okay.
So, they could probably mobilize with their equipment stuff on site and then be doing other projects. And when the roof becomes available,
They're there.
come back here.
Perfect. Okay. That completes our agenda items other than public comment. So I throw it over to Michelle.
Good morning. For all participants, please state your name and address for the record log. You will have up to 3 minutes to comment. Anyone in person? And there are no raised hands.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
It's up to Joe.
So move, all in favor? Thank you very much for all
Thank you.
attending. And thank you to the DAF again.
Thank you,
Have a
Dr.
Good
Adley.
afternoon, everyone.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.